Quite like many other countries, India too is keen on having laws to regulate and standardize DNA tests in the country. While a DNA fingerprinting bill is in the works for quite some years now, a final draft of the bill has been released by the Law Commission of India, and it is called the DNA-Based Technology, Use and Regulation Bill 2017. But before we deep dive into what the bill proposes, let's understand why we need laws to govern DNA tests. As experts have emphasized over the years, we need such laws to standardize DNA testing, to make DNA data admissible as evidence in judicial proceedings, to regulate the use of such information by law enforcement agencies, and to set procedures and protocols. There are a plethora of reasons to have a regulatory framework for DNA testing, and also it's important to understand that no database can be prepared in the absence of a legal framework. And therefore, this bill seeks to set up two institutions, DNA Profiling Board and DNA Data Bank, to establish regulatory institutions and standards for DNA testing, supervising activities of laboratories that carry out DNA tests, and to have DNA database of convicts or suspects. While the new bill looks promising, it brings along a lot of objections and concerns related to consent and privacy. We, however, are yet to see the fate of this bill in India. Bureau Report, WION.
Let's take a step back and also take a look at how DNA fingerprinting really works.
To get the DNA portrait he needs, Jeffries has to sort the fragments by size. Then the sample goes onto one end of a gel plate. Technicians apply electrical current, and electricity pulls the fragments through the gel.
The gel acts exactly like a sieve, and the small fragments are able to travel quickly through the gel, and the large fragments travel slowly. At the end of the process, we have an X-ray film which effectively has a barcode on it.
It may look like random splotches, but that barcode is unique. In all the world, it belongs to only one person.
Let's also get in further perspective from Dr. Komal Kamra, Associate Professor Zoology from Khalsa College, joining us over the phone line. Doctor, my first question to you is a huge gap between the implementation and what's really on paper as far as the revised bill is concerned. We've lost the line with Dr. Kamra. We'll just try and reconnect with her. Ankit, if I can come to you on, this is of course a revised bill. The 2015 bill also threw up many questions, but now there are several objections being raised as far as the intrusion aspect goes, as far as the implementation of this bill really goes.
So, Modi, it was back in 2015 when this bill was, when a draft of this bill was introduced, but it had a lot of loopholes, it had a lot of flaws. So the bill was not introduced in the parliament. So it took a couple of years for the committee to actually revise the bill, and Law Commission of India actually came up with a new bill, and they have fixed, they say to have fixed the loopholes in the bill, and they have come up with a final bill, with a final draft of the bill, and it claims to have regulations and rules in place according to what people would be expecting, and so that, I mean, they're in a position now to actually introduce it in the parliament.
Right, Ankit, stay with us. Let's also get in further perspective from Dr. Kamra. I believe she's back on the phone line. Dr. Kamra, as we've been discussing and as my colleague just pointed out, a host of questions still remain unanswered. But first of all, take us through the advantages that this bill proposes according to you, and how in a certain way it will help the government actually carry on the task that it was devised for.
See, the ramifications of its usage are tremendous. There's no doubt about that. And I don't see, I mean, in medicine or in criminology, there's ample number and it's all there in the bill. So there's no issue about the usage. My questions are regarding, let's say, security or concerns, if I put them as concerns. Shall I tell you about those?
Ma'am,
Those mean more to me.
Sure, the gap between the implementation and what's really looking good on paper, a lot of issues coming up when it comes to whether or not the system is actually prepared to actually carry on as far as this proposal is concerned.
Just before I say that, people have been voicing concerns about being unduly worried about giving your own data, my data. I wouldn't be much bothered about that actually. It doesn't really matter if my DNA profile lies in the repository.
But is the system prepared?
My concern, my question is regarding the fact that we are not prepared enough. I mean, for a meaningful repository of this, it's a large mega data that we're talking about. It will probably end up in warehousing or piling data which you're not able to retrieve well, or you land up with false data or incomplete data. That would concern me much more than anything else.
All right, and Dr. Kamra, as far as the advantages go, you were taking us through the many benefits that this bill proposes. Also take us through the kind of changes that we've been discussing that have been brought about and the impetus that the government really had to bring about those changes.
See, I don't question what the government, let's say, what they mean to do. There's no doubt, there's no question. I don't question that they mean well. Okay, they do mean well, and it's all drafted very well. I am sure the biggest advantage gainers would be in the field of medicine. And also in the field of criminology. I perceive these two seem to be the biggest gainers as far as the system goes.
All right, ma'am. All right, we're going to leave it there, Dr. Kamra. Appreciate your joining us on the broadcast. Ankit, as the doctor was just pointing out, a number of issues that are, being raised every time the discussion regarding DNA fingerprinting is brought about. Now, this is, of course, a revised bill. There was a 2015 bill which was put under scrutiny earlier as well. But whether or not the system is actually prepared to have this repository, because a number of challenges also come up when we talk about this technique being implemented.
Absolutely. The need of the hour is that we need to have such laws in the country. If you take a worldwide view, over 50 countries have similar laws when you talk about regulations governing DNA testing. So a lot of countries, as I said, over 50 countries have similar laws when it comes to matters related to DNA testing. Talking about India, given that DNA testing is becoming very popular when you talk about criminal investigations, when you talk about cases where bodies are left unidentified, when you talk about cases where suspects and convicts come into play and it becomes very difficult to identify them. So there is no two way about it that you need such laws to actually govern DNA testing, because what happens when you collect data, and given that everything is stored online today, so you need something to govern those things, because A, it could be misused, B, you never know in what hands it might land up in, C, whether or not those data should stay online, and or when those data should be removed, because of course it's a personal data. When you talk about DNA, it's very personal. So if you are not a convict, if you are not a suspect, why your data should be online then?
All right, we're going to leave it there for the moment. That's a wrap on this part of the discussion.